Yo guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. So I've just jumped on today to do my weekly Forex forecast, and this will be the Forex forecast for the week commencing the 18th of April 2022. But before we do get started with the forecast, I will just draw your guys' attention to the written version. So if you guys want to check out the written version of this forecast, then I'll have it linked in the description. Also guys, if you're grateful for this forecast, please do subscribe to the channel because it does really help me out, and I do put time each weekend to get these forecasts out for you guys. Alright, so let's get started. So I'll try to keep it simple today. Nzdusd on the daily, we've had this bullish break of structure here. That originated from down here where I've marked low, so that's a strong low. Now for me, like I spoke about this last few weeks, this whole area here is a bullish order block. So following from the daily time frame, what we should expect is that price is going to start to buy up following the presence of institutional demand coming into the market, and then we can look to follow that upwards to then break structure again on a high up here. So the high is actually this one. So yeah, for me, based just on the daily, what I'm expecting is that institutional demand will start to come into the market this week out of this area, and that will take us up here to break this structure, and that's following on from this previous bullishness by the institutions that they've been up to in the last few weeks. Now, with that said, we do have to be conscious of what's going on the hourly time frames, since it's always a possibility that an order block doesn't get respected and that price does just continue through the order block. So let's take a look at the 4 hour as well. Now, looking at the 4 hour, the most recent break of structure is bearish. So, just on the 4 hour, we do actually have a bearish bias. So for me, until we do get that transition really on the 4 hour, we are overall looking at bearishness. So whilst the daily is the higher time frame and does hold more weight, unless the 4 hour flips, then we can't really think that we're going to be going bullish, because the 4 hour does hold enough weight to basically just keep the price going downwards. So that's why I've got this marked on. So going into the start of the week really, what I am anticipating is that we're going to have some type of reaction from this daily area. That will bring us up into this big wick here. Now this wick is the institutional supply, which has caused this break of structure here. So for me, realistically, what I'll be waiting for is for price to get up into here, and then we can see, is the institutional supply going to continue to drive the market downwards to then break the daily low, or will we see that change of character and we can get price coming up out of this daily order block to then break the 4 hour structure. So for me, I will be open to both opportunities. I think buys are completely valid from here based on the daily, but then based on the 4 hour, I do think that sells are absolutely valid from here. Now, honestly, and I'll show you AUD, because of AUD, I do think that this sell thesis might just continue to play out, because that is literally what's happened this last week. And whilst you could say it was just a retrace down here, we do have quite a bit of momentum with this whole move, and that order block for me is very clear. So what I'm really am expecting is that we may just end up breaking the low due to this 4 hour price action. But obviously, looking at the daily, we are bullish, so we do have to keep that in mind. So start of next week on NU, we can look for buys out of here, but then when we do get into this area, I will be very wary. And if we do start to see that sells on the lower time frame, we get a 15-minute structural transition into sells, I'll be more than happy to take sells out of there, and then we can anticipate that price is just going to continue and break this low, just based on this order block here, which is bearish. So they're really the two opportunities this week on Nzdusd. So we'll have to follow the 1 hour, 15-minute to see what price actually gives us. But either way, if we get a bullish structural transition from this area, then buys are absolutely fine and cool, and sells are absolutely fine out of this area right now, as long as we do get that structural transition on the lower time frame. So for me, NU this week, there's two opportunities. There's sells following the 4 hour, and then there's buys following the daily. So let's see what we get this week. Moving on to AU. Alright, so AU, the structure hasn't changed much since last week from a daily perspective. So we was in this bullish bias here. Now, within that whole bullish consecutive breaks, what we had was break of structure, mitigation, and then another break. So for me, that mitigation there left behind this order flow invalidation. So essentially, we've got our bullish thesis following this move, and the invalidation for that bullish thesis is here, which is where the bullish order flow will be invalidated. So, assuming that the institutions do want to continue bullish overall, then you would expect that they're going to hold this candle here, which will be the bullish order block, which is where their orders are. Now, that said, it also makes sense that price will come back down here before we then do continue that bullish thesis, just because there's going to be so many unmitigated institutional orders in this area. They're heavily incentivized to bring the price down here to mitigate the orders and then continue higher. So considering that, so considering we've got a reason to come back down here, and now looking at the current daily structure, we have had a break of structure to the low. So at the minute, what we're being shown is that price has started to sell off. We have seen that institutional sell volume coming into the market. We know price has a reason to go lower. So realistically this week, what I'm going to be expecting on AU is that price will continue lower and that we can have our sell bias at least into the start of the week. But most likely for the whole week, it's going to be a sell bias because we're targeting to get down into this area here to fill the imbalance and allow the institutions to mitigate. So within this whole sell thesis that's going on, for me, there's two clear order blocks. So you've got the extreme order block up here on the daily, so the order block that caused this break of structure here. So what we could see, start of next week, we'll whip back up into here, and then we can go down. Now, I do think that could happen. So if we do get up into there, then I'm absolutely open to looking for sells, which will then take us back down here. That said, however, if we are going to overall follow through with this bullish bias, they don't necessarily need to come up now to mitigate this area to fill this imbalance, because obviously if they're going to be breaking this high at some point, then they'll come back up there anyway. So that's why I've marked on this order block here. Now for me, that overall retracement, it is quite a big retracement in the context of what's currently going on. And what I'm actually seeing is that we've already started now this bearish move, and now we've got this type of bearish order flow and bearish structure on the 6-hour time frame. Now, it's there on the 4-hour, 5-hour. I've seen it. I think the 6 hours cleanest, so that's why I'm using the 6-hour. So simply with the 6-hour time frame, we have the first break of structure here. Now we've had a second break of structure, so we know we're in a bearish trend. And in terms of the current structure, the invalidation for that is this high here. So for me, the best opportunity at the minute on AUDUSD is going to be waiting for price to come up into here, and then we can look to sell out of there. And that will allow us to basically take price down into this daily order flow invalidation order block. So for me, AU this week, we have got sells out of here if price gets up there. When we do get down here, if we do, then I'm absolutely happy to take buys out of here, following this, supported by this order flow invalidation. But the real opportunity that I'm seeing in the short term is going to be a retracement into this 6-hour bearish order block, and then we can look for those intraday, 15-minute, 5-minute sell structures, which will allow us to get involved in the market, and then we can look to follow this move down. So I hope that was clear, guys, and that is AUDUSD this week. If anything's not clear, then please do comment, leave a comment if you're not clear about something, because I do try and explain it my best. But, I'm sure that some people still get a bit confused by it. Also, it is all going to be in the written version, so if you guys are unclear on anything, just check out the written version of the forecast. So, let's look at pound dollar. So, pound dollar, I've spoke about this a few times, so I'm not going to go over all these order blocks, but we did have this original, and we are still in an overall bearish bias on pound dollar. And for me, I do think that we're going to go up into one of these two areas before that bearish bias actually plays out in the longer term. So for me right now, what we've got is reason to come higher in terms of the overall bearish thesis. And then, as I'll discuss in a minute, we've also got reason to come higher in terms of the current price action. So let's see what's going on. So the most recent daily break on pound dollar was this bullish break of structure here. So what that essentially displayed is that the institutions have started buying and that we've got that bullish intent in the market. Now, what we saw last week is prices retraced all the way down here, and it's even actually liquidity grab below the low by basically wicking below the low. However, it did fail to close below the low, so for me, this low is still valid and it's not actually being violated yet. Now, with that, what we can also see is here we did 280 pips in 8 days or 6 days with the market open, and then to get back down, it's taken 20 days. So just based on this price action from here to here, the last 30 days, we do actually have momentum on the side of the bulls. So considering that we've got that bullish momentum, we've got this low is managing to hold, and then we've also got the order block here, which is essentially now pushing price upwards. I do think that this week we're going to see that bullish bias on the pound dollar. So let's jump onto the 4 hour. So we can see that this low is holding the order block here. We've seen that institutional demand come in from the order block, just like we was expecting. So at this point now, what we've had is 4 hour bullish break of structure. So for me, this bullish break of structure here is a signal that price is going to go higher, that the institutions now are ready to take it higher, and that they've started putting their buy orders into the market. So going into the start of next week on pound dollar, what I will be just looking at is price basically retracing down into this 4 hour order block, and then we can look for buys out of there using 15-minute, using 5-minute, whatever time frames you guys want to use. And then with that, we can target this first area here, which is going to be the daily order block for the sell thesis. So for me, that's what's going on with the pound dollar. Now, obviously, it is just going down technically, so if it does just continue to go down, if we see another break of structure, then I will adapt and continue to see what will go on with price and most likely look to follow sells using the 4 hour. But what I'm seeing right now is that we've got bullish intent on the daily. The bullish order block on the daily is being respected in the terms that we've not seen the body close below the low. And then on the 4 hour, we've got bullish intent with an absolutely clear order block with imbalance for us to follow through from. So for me, this week, all I'm looking at on GU is buys out of here, and then if anything different happens, I'll adapt to the market structure that happens at the time. Alright, so let's look at euro dollar. So euro dollar, we'll keep it quite simple this week. So we're still in our bearish daily bias. Now, what we've got is this low here. Now, this week price has actually not broken below it yet. So we are still within the range from here to here, and price is still technically respecting this low. However, just because it's not broken through, it doesn't mean it's not going to break through. It just means that it hasn't broken through it yet, so the daily structure's not changed. Now, within the daily structure, if we do fail to get a body close below this low, then I am going to expect price to come back up here to mitigate the order block here before then continuing down for that longer term bearish bias. That said, however, we are just so close to the low now that I don't feel comfortable saying that we're not going to break it. We most likely are going to break the low now. So whilst, if we don't break the low and we start to flip bullish, I'll be happy to take buys to take us back up to here and then eventually take sells out of here. Whilst I'm happy to predict like that, I do think that it just makes more sense in this context to follow the lower time frames because we're so close to the daily low. So with that said, what we've got, and this is the same order block across the 4 hour, 5 hour, 6 hour, but I'll just show them 6 hour because it's very clean. What we've had is that we actually have had that break to the low on the 6 hour with the body close, and what that's left behind is a clear order block for supply. So for me this week with euro dollar, the first thing I'm going to be looking at is sells following this 6 hour supply order block, and for me I'll be more than happy to sell out of that area. Now, failing that, I will anticipate that price will violate that and then look to transition into that bullish scenario, which can then take us up to this daily order block. Now, if we do get that happen, where price does go bullish, then we can look to enter on this retracement, which will maybe happen in the middle of the week. However, that is just pure speculation, and that opportunity is only valid if we break above this high. So really, EU this week, the only thing to be watching based on what's currently on the chart is sells out of this area up here. Failing that, then we can adapt to the new market structure when it happens. And on the daily, we're still overall in the sell bias, and we're currently between this high and this low. So that is EU this week. So Euro Pound, I do think relatively simple one this week. So coming from the weekly, with Euro Pound, what we've got is the range from the strong high here, which is the pro trend high for sells. Then we've got the weak low here, which we're expecting to be broken. Now, any hint of bulls from last week from the daily time frame has now gone. So what's happened within this whole weekly range? We broke the low. We've now retraced, we've mitigated the high, and then it does look as if we are now starting to see that follow through to the low to break the week low. So we know that we're definitely bearish based on the weekly time frame. Now, looking at the daily time frame, we had one break structure here, two break structure here. This second break structure is the most recent one, and that came from this candle here, and specifically from this high here. So what we've now got is, this strong supply order block on the daily, which is supported by weekly strength. So for me, I'm very confident to be selling out of this area, and I will be happy to look for sales from this area. Now, that said, what we've also got is this strong high here on the 4 hour. So if we do fail to break this strong high on the 4 hour, then that is also a fine point to sell from, following this whole bearish move that's happening on the daily. So e.g., this week we've got one order block here on the 4 hour. We can look to sell out of that. That's absolutely fine. We've also got another order block here on the daily, and we can look to sell out of that, and that is absolutely fine. So for me, on Euro Pound, I am anticipating the bearish bias. I do think we're going to break this week low based on the weekly time frame, and I'll be looking to follow that thesis from either here initially, or failing that, I will look to follow it from here, and I am confident in this overall prediction. So that's my analysis of Euro Pound this week. And finally, pound yen. So pound yen, we've still got the structures I spoke about in previous weeks, and if we do get there, then we can still buy out of it. But looking at what's happening right now, that's pretty irrelevant just because of how far away it is. What's actually relevant right now is this whole leg of price action here. So looking at this leg of price action, we've had a bullish breaker structure which originated from basically down here. So that whole move there is what kicked off this impulsive leg, which has now broken structure. So really with this, there's, I suppose for me, 3 different ways that this range plays out if we are going to continue bullish, which I anticipate we will. So within the bullish bias, we can either just continue upwards without any real retracement. So within that thesis where we just continue upwards, I'd suggest just following the hourly time frames. And the next point to follow on the hourly is there. So, within a thesis where we don't really see much of a pullback, we can just look to follow the hourly because we are supported by all this bullish momentum and institutional buys. So the first area to look for buys from next week on pound yen is going to be the 1 hour order block down there. Now, for me though, it does make sense that we'll see at least this 4 hour pullback because, well, from my understanding, it doesn't make sense for the institutions to just keep going all the time. If they do this pullback, they can mitigate some of the sell orders that are down there. They can also generate more liquidity, so they can make more money as they continue higher. So for me, I do think that there's a decent chance of price pulling back into this 4 hour area here. So also this week, we've basically got the 4 hour to buy from. So that is the origin of the most recent 4 hour break structure. And then, I personally, I do think the 4 hour is the one that's most likely to get respected. But if we do fail to find that support from a 4-hour order block, then the last valid point in terms of the current daily impulsive leg is going to be this daily order block down here, and I have marked off a refinement with imbalance. So that's pound yen for me this week, and I think we're definitely looking at buys. It's just a case of whether we're going to follow it from the 1 hour, the 4 hour, or look at it following it from a daily. But if we are going to follow it from a daily, then that may be something that's going to happen next week, and this week, or even the next couple of weeks, could be about coming back down to this daily area. But let's see what we get given this week, and that is pound yen. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the forecast. Hope you got value. If you got any comments, then do just leave them below. And if you do want to see the written version, then it is linked in the description. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Please have a safe trading week. Follow your trading plans. And I hope you guys all have a profitable week. Cheers guys.